Yeah, like
was on track. Things were going well. Your professional career was awesome. You're
yep,
living in Hollywood. You're
yep,
working with big
yep,
stars. I mean, people would think you would have it all.
yep. That's it. Yeah, and I honestly did. Like I really had it all. But this is, I mean, fast. This is why it's like my whole philosophy is like mind, body, spirit living
Yeah.
now, because on the outside everything can look perfect, but you never know what's going on the inside. And so you probably can, you understand. I mean, everything will look great, and then you're secretly like dying on the inside. So
Yeah.
I was secretly like, dying on the inside over this relationship that I had felt I had ruined this human being and sent him to prison.
Hmm.
So that was like the saga of my youth. And then something happened. I was working at a special effects studio, and I like dropped some of the chemicals on me, and I had open cuts, and I ended up getting this like severe, almost like a staph infection, and I got super sick. Like we're talking like knocked down, dragged down. I remember like crawling on the ground just trying to get the phone to call 911 to come and get me.
Really?
And so I always explain like I was like a wild gypsy, and this is gonna sound like really weird to a lot of people, but like when that happened, I took it as a sign from the universe that it was like time to move on and like go do some things. So I had a ton of money, and I was like, when I came out of the hospital, I was like, you know what? Like it scared me, and I was like, I want to go and I want to travel and I want to see some of the world. So
Hmm.
I like embarked on this crazy travel adventure, and I moved to Spain to go live with my cousin, and that's when like my drinking really started, like
So, so,
heavy.
so to take a quick step back, when you were in the Hollywood world, there was
I
no
was
heroin, no drugs, nothing
nope,
yet. Okay.
nope,
It wasn't
nothing.
until you moved to Spain,
Yep,
you're
yep.
becoming a gypsy, finding
I was
yourself.
like fast and furious. So, and that's really important. Like by the time I didn't try my first drug until I was 19. So this is all 17, 18, 19. Like I literally was handed the entire world so young,
That's
and
crazy.
no, and when I have a purpose, like I'm good.
Yeah,
Like
full
I'm
speed
always,
ahead. I get
yeah,
that. I get that from you.
yeah, I know.
So it was 19 when you moved to Spain.
I was 19 when I moved to Spain.
Okay,
So
so
I was
now,
18 because I was 18. Yep, 19 when I moved to Spain, and that whole year traveled. So I
yeah,
moved to Spain, and I started partying big time. Like that's where I got really into like the clubbing scene in Europe, and I had a ton of money, so I like lived in all these like lavish hotels. I mean, I was just like this. I lived out of my suitcase. I was wild, and I
yeah.
actually that's where if you follow my Instagram, I buzzed my head like on a balcony chair I have now. So like
Yeah.
everything heals. So I shaved my head on a balcony in Spain because I was wasted and I was depressed, and so I was wild. Like I was just this wild partying animal over in Europe, and I went all over and I traveled, and then I went down to New Zealand and to Australia.
Were you solo, or you said you went out there to and lived with your cousin, so you were living with.
I lived with my cousin in Madrid, and then I went by myself to Barcelona, and then I just traveled all by myself. But you meet people when you travel. You meet people. So I made really good friends with someone from Sweden and Switzerland. So then we all went to Australia and New Zealand. So you like it's like the people who travel just for the sake of travel.
Yeah,
Get it? Like you make these bonds with people, and like you just meet people at hospitals or at hotels, and you just like start traveling with them.
that's really neat. Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it's kind
it
of
was.
fun to go for exploration with new people and new adventures. I mean, you're really learning a lot about yourself. Unfortunately, there's a component where there's the depression and the drugs.
Yeah, that was there, and that was like always, and that's like once again, where it's like you look at people who live this like perfect life. Like my life looked, I mean, honestly, my life looked perfect. Like
Hmm.
I worked in Hollywood, I had money to travel all over the world, and yet look back and I think back, and I'm like, I just remember like sitting on this party barge, like in the islands off Australia,
Hmm.
and I was so drunk and I was so hungover and I was so depressed.
Hmm.
I was so depressed. And I remember thinking like, God, I'm in like an island off Australia, the most beautiful location in the world, and I'm miserable. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
And so At that point, Max had been, while I'm traveling, he actually had been writing letters. So there was still that connection, still the prison letters, and I love you. And he actually got caught smuggling drugs into prison. And so he actually had to have like a medical evacuation surgery and like was cut open and his entire like body cavity to like his whole chest.
Oh my
To
God.
get drugs out. And so he got put into solitary confinement.
That is insane.
Yeah, so I was like dealing with that in my own mind. So after Australia and New Zealand, I came back and I was really depressed. So funny. I mean, it's so funny.
So when you say came back, did you land in Santa Fe?
Yep, I went back to Santa Fe.
Now, when you were traveling, sorry, I take a quick side. So, does your mom know what's going on? Are you telling her? Obviously, she knows you're traveling the world, but are you telling her about your drinking and your drugs? Are you feeling depressed? Did you need somebody to lean on, or were you just internalizing everything?
I was internalizing it, and
Yeah.
I justified it because I still was not doing drugs. I still was drinking. I honestly had watched what drugs did in people's lives, and I was one of those people because of like personal connections that I witnessed, and then everything was Max, where I was like, I'm never gonna do a drug. I was one of those people. I'll never do a drug. Like I was not ever gonna do it. I've had a lot of family members kill themselves, like horrifically, and I wasn't gonna do it. So, and that's what's so funny. But like I'm predisposed, so I wasn't gonna do it. But then the alcohol was out of control. I came back. My mom knew I was depressed. Like honestly, I think everybody just thought that I was just drinking too much and a little bit depressed and but I also kind of like could still pull it together in front of people. But then I decided to go to Africa. So I came back and I remember because I was so this is like a kind of crazy like wraparound story, but like in a fun edit. I came back to Santa Fe and I was at my mom's house and I got my cup of coffee and on the cup it was the quote from Gandhi, like you must be the change you wish to see in the world. And I had this like light bulb go off and it was like I have no purpose. Like I have no purpose and I need to find a purpose. Like I just knew I needed a purpose. So I like was like I'm gonna go to Africa. And so I started like researching and I found this like volunteer program in Tanzania and I picked it because the town was called Bagamoyo, which is Arabic for to lay down your heart. And it was like I just needed somewhere to lay down. I know that sounds corny, but like I remember thinking like my heart is broken and I need somewhere to put it. So a week later, I hopped on the plane and went. That my mom was a little freaked out about. I mean, my poor mom, like my poor family through my whole life. Like honestly, it's been so wild. There's been a lot of sleepless nights for her.
I'm sure.
So I got
poor
on
mom.
the plane. What?
I said poor mom.
Poor mama. So I got on the plane and then I went to Africa and fell in love. Like I had purpose. I was sober. I was happy. It was like I don't know if you've ever had that type of happiness, but it was like when people talk about being in the moment.
Yeah.
Like I was in
the moment.
Yeah.
Where in Africa were you?
I was in Tanzania in a town called Bagamoyo.
Wow.
So it's right on the Indian Ocean. So I was volunteering at the school and with other travelers and other people who were volunteering. And I was happy. Like I just remember like every moment, every step I took, I was there. And I just fell in love. Like it was incredible. So I started to realize like the volunteer program, you like pay money to go volunteer, which I was fine doing because that's when I had money. But then I made friends with like the headmaster and the teachers. And so I just started to kind of like ask, and you have to remember, this is all, I'm still 19. This is this year of my life. Like, I'm a baby still. And so I started to like ask questions on like where, because I noticed they had no books. Like, there were no books in the school. They had a couple like English books, but they didn't Swahili. So I was like, hey, like, you guys get any money that actually like comes through the volunteer program? And they're like, no, we get white people to come and talk about English and draw pictures. And I'm like, okay, something just feels really wrong about this. Like, I just couldn't stand it. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start my own nonprofit. Like, I'm gonna just start my own. So I got together with the headmaster and the teacher, and we sat down. And I'm like, what do you guys actually need, and what do you guys think? And so we brainstormed, and I came back to the United States, and I went back to California. I went back to Santa Barbara at that point, and I actually enrolled in school, and I ran a nonprofit, and it was awesome. Like, I did a ton of fundraising and speaking, and I started to study international, it was global studies, because I really just was like, okay, I'm traveling, like, I'm helping a school, I probably need an education. I had no college education at that point, and so I ended up also turning it into a volunteer program. So I brought people back with me to Africa, but I do have to say, when I was in school, I still had this. I was running the nonprofit, and I still was working on projects in LA. Like, I'd pick up little projects that I'd want to work on.
Where'd you find the time to do all this? Jeez.
What?
The traveling. Where'd you find all the time to do all this?
Well, I was living in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
So I was living in Santa Barbara, and then like if I had a friend who was going to make a commercial or do a music video, I would still do that. So I like went back to my film, but I would always drop out of all my classes. So like I seriously would be like, I don't need to go to school, so I'd drop out of my classes and I'd run my nonprofit. So I have to say that because I've honestly dropped out of college, I think 8 times for the rest. No, I did 8
Hey,
times.
well, you're in Africa. You found your purpose. You said
Yeah,
you were happy.
yeah. My story like just getting started. So I dropped out of school a lot because I just didn't see the purpose. Because I found my purpose. So I ended up bringing people back with me, and we rebuilt the school. We did a library. We brought like 10,000 books, and we did everything local. So we like got all of the books from local book vendors in Dar es Salaam, and we redid the bathroom, did sanitations, and we got a water well installed. And we started extracurricular activities, so soccer tournaments and art programs. Yeah, and it was amazing. But
Yeah.
it was crazy to think back because I brought 3 people with me, and like one of them was 15 years old. Like somebody trusted their 15-year-old with me, and I'm still like 19. I think I'm 20 at that point.
Yeah.
So, and we had to do. It got a little scary,
What do you mean?
because so like my mom would, and the people on the board, because I had a legitimate nonprofit, would wire the money to Western Union. This was like a village, so we would have to take a bus down to the Dar es Salaam, and then have a ton of money.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah. That would be a little nerve-wracking.
So
Yeah.
I guess we could just tape it to our body. So I had us like tape money on our bodies, like under our clothes, to bring back to the village.
Wow, that's a little scary. That's a little intense.
Yeah, very intense. So yeah, it was really intense. It was just kind of crazy, but it was fine until it wasn't. So at the end trip, and you have to this was my life. Okay, like this was like my purpose, and I didn't want to leave. Like I actually was gonna stay. Like after the trip was over, I was gonna stay. And like the pressure of like, oh, you can't live in Africa, you need to come back. Like you really need to finish your school that you started. Like get serious. But I honestly just was like, no, I could have lived there and like run my nonprofit, and I had a million one ideas, and I was friends with all the locals. And then when we were getting ready to go, like part of the government came from the local town, and so they knew that we had been bringing money in, and they wanted a cut.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, and so they almost arrested us, and we got detained and questioned, and it was actually very scary.
Yeah.
And it turned out that like the headmaster had been in with the local